Huddle up. One and all. It is the Morning Huddle on 94.1 San Antonio Sports Star. Check out the show at sasportstar.com and make sure to watch on our YouTube channel. If you do, you will see my bright, shining, beautiful face. I am RJ Ochoa. He is not Rob Thompson. Sitting in this particular not Monday, Tuesday morning from the Blitz, Jason Minix.
Yeah, it's a Tuesday that feels like a Monday after a holiday weekend, and a Pros Pro extends that long weekend even more. So I'm hanging out with you this morning. But my first time on the Morning Huddle.
Some people call it the Morning Cuddle. Do you feel that way?
I mean, I've called it the cuddle quite a bit, actually. You guys cuddle up. You guys cuddle up.
There is a cuddling nature to it. There's a cuddling sort of kinship and friendship that we all have. Look at, the Brigade Bar. Miss Becky forgot to say it's a pleasant surprise to see Minix here this morning. Look at that.
Appreciate that, Miss Becky. Although J4 says Jason has the best radio voice with the worst Dak takes. Ooh, and that's not really silly. Cuddle up. But here's the thing. Dak is a great regular season quarterback that can't get it done in the postseason. That's an awful take. I get it. I will work on it.
This isn't about Dak, all right? Because I know you don't know the rules around here. I know you're all used to sleeping until 8:30 and whatnot. This is 7 o'clock on the Morning Huddle, which means we talk the San Antonio. It is look at the clock. We talk San Antonio Spurs. This is Silver and Black. We podcast it every day. You can access it in the audio vault at sasportstar.com. You can also, like I said, rewatch and check out everything on the San Antonio Sports Star YouTube channel. And if we hit our mandated amount of subscribers, Rob and I will do the hot one. The golf tournament later on this not this month, but about a month from now, and that should be kind of fun. But anyway, Jason, no Spurs games over the weekend, but we did get to see Wemby and Jeremy Sohan in action. Jeremy walked home with a trophy, actually. Hey, look at that. But I gotta be honest with you, kind of a bummer of a weekend for Wemby. Felt like we got 5 minutes into everything for Wemby, and then it was all gone away.
I think it had to be a disappointing weekend for Wemby. The fact that he wasn't in the main attraction, yet he was treated like he was the main attraction. I saw Larry Ramirez from KSAT 12 post from the Indianapolis airport a photo down by baggage claim, the escalator going down. It was Wemby that was plastered all over the place, and not bad for a guy that wasn't an all-star. And I think a couple of things. One, what the hell was that uniform they were making him wear? Why was he wearing brown while doing all of that? That does not represent the San Antonio Spurs. In an all-star showcase, represent your team. I should be able to look at that and know exactly what it is. I hate those uniforms to begin with. But in the All-Star game, wear the silver and black. Wear a traditional Spurs uniform.
That applies to everyone, by the way. Like, we don't need to see your whatever jersey. Like, if you're at the All-Star weekend, wear the jersey that is most commonly affiliated with your team. It is a team level of pride. But, obviously that point applies here. Whatever he was wearing, again, it was just it felt hollow, and I don't really blame Wemby for that, but it felt like, man, we barely got to see him. You know what I mean? Well, and that just sucked.
I mean, and I saw somebody tweet, it might have been, I don't know, RJ Ochoa, just like the regular season in the All-Star game, Wemby's teammates are letting them down again.
They did. I mean, he was ready for everything seemingly, and just, I mean, I don't know. I missed the skills challenge where it was an individual thing. I miss me with this team wide. The three of us have to be passing into moving targets simultaneously. Team top picks. Why? Why can't it just be Wemby? Why do we have to dress it up this way? I do feel like he did his part, but it was kind of a letdown of a weekend as a Wemby fan, at least.
With what we saw on television. Now, quite honestly, Saturday night, I was going back and forth and I had the two TVs going in the living room, but the All-Star, when Wemby was on, I flipped over from the Stadium Series in the NHL, the New Jersey Devils beating the hell out of the Philadelphia Flyers. That was going to the big TV. So I wasn't paying a lot of attention to what was going on with All-Star Weekend, except for when Wemby was on. And
wow, no love for Jeremy.
None. I mean, to be quite honest, no. I mean, I
He
watched this
won. What
part.
do you mean? No, he won.
Yeah,
His team won. He got the
good.
trophy.
Yeah, I was there for Wemby, and then playing
Wow.
the drama. Man, he and Trae Young certainly spent a lot of time together. They were spending a lot of time together, sitting on the bench. They were laughing. Different tweets, and obviously the speculation about Trae Young coming to San Antonio by way of trade in the offseason. Trae Young was asked about Wemby a couple of different times. He was very careful, obviously, with his answers, but his answers should excite Spurs fans if you're on the we want to get Trae Young kind of train to get here. And quite frankly, I think from a Spurs fan perspective, name me a guard that will throw him the ball. Name me a big time guard.
Devin Vassell.
That I said big time. That
you
will
also
throw
said
him the ball. But at the same time, I mean, what all stars are we going to surround Wemby with? And Trae Young, I don't think anybody is against that idea right now. But it's also the one that seems to have the most legs, and that is worth getting excited about. How many number one picks do you need, Atlanta? Because the Spurs have plenty of them. The Spurs cannot take Wemby and build through the draft. They just can't. There's not enough time. And the fan base, I don't think, will be patient. Keep in mind, we haven't made the playoffs in how many years? Clock did not start over when we drafted Wemby, although some of the comments I've heard from Gregg Popovich make it feel that way. And if they feel that way over at the facility, the Spurs have bigger issues in the front office.
So Rudy Gonzalez says in the Brigade Bar, lots of Trae Young rumors this weekend. That feels like the easy dot to connect, obviously, in terms of I mean, because I think we both agree that there's an all-star, whether an active one or former one, that's going to be teammates with Wemby next year, right? I mean, it has to be the case. Yeah. Did you see? There was no audio of this floating around, but did you see? Speaking of all-stars, what Giannis had to say about Wemby over the course of the weekend?
Tell me.
So that's what I'm going to do. This is the whole point of the conversation. So I don't know if you saw this, but LeBron doesn't like attention. He's always shied away from attention. So, LeBron just,
we all know that.
The idea of a farewell tour is just really inconceivable for LeBron. So he was asked, as were a lot of NBA players, about the future face of the NBA, just given that LeBron is obviously close to retiring. And LeBron again said, I never asked to be the face, Right. That's true. It's totally true, LeBron. But different names were thrown out and suggested by different people. And generally, most players just said that the game is in a great place with all the young talent. But Giannis was speaking about Wemby specifically and said for him, the most important thing I think throughout his career is going to be health. Because if he has health, he has everything. He's going to dominate on the court because he's unguardable. This is Giannis speaking. You cannot guard him one-on-one. I don't know if you can guard him 2-on-1 or 3-on-1. We've tried and we couldn't. A lot of people around the NBA have tried and they couldn't. As long as Victor's healthy, the league is his. LeBron is kind of like that. So, yeah, if you aren't given that, forget who the dude is for a second, but just consider the way that this dude was described by Giannis. If you're not doing everything within your power to assess this situation, because even Giannis, they gave him Dame. You know what I mean? And you can say what you want about, love to talk about here, flyover towns and blah, blah. Milwaukee was able to give Giannis Dame. Dame wins the three-point contest, wins wins All-Star MVP. He has help. And it's, again, not putting Wemby on Giannis's level here, but you cannot drag your feet anymore on this.
You can't, and granted, they've also gotten a coach fired, and they're struggling a little bit as they head into the All-Star break. But I do look at that Milwaukee team.
Would you not trade spots with them, though, in a second?
I would, in a heartbeat. Now, keep in mind, last summer, I wanted Dame Lillard in San Antonio. I wanted, knowing that Dame was out, and you could check the audio vault at sasportstar.com and go back a ways. It's powered by AA Best Bail Bonds. And you will hear me. When they got the number one pick and we knew Wemby was coming, the Spurs had two options. You're either going to put this rebuild in high gear right now and go get Dame, or you're going to have what we have now, which sucks. Now, granted, we didn't expect it to suck this bad with the Spurs because essentially it's the same team from a year ago with a player like Wemby getting added in. The fact that we're at the All-Star break with 11 wins is a complete failure at this point, because we all thought, and me, last year's team was better than the 22 wins, because there are a lot of games that at the end they didn't try to win. I think a guy like Devin Vassell has to understand he's not the guy anymore. It is Wemby. And when that light bulb goes off for Devin, I think we'll see a bit of a change. The Jeremy Sohan experiment lasted way too long, although that might have actually made him a better overall basketball player.
I think that there's merit to going through a difficult circumstance and coming out on the other end. And I think that that's definitely the case for Jeremy, kind of a metamorphosis sort of project. He cocooned up as a caterpillar. Now he's a beautiful butterfly. You know what I'm saying? And there's value in that. I mean, think about it. He's the only Spur who has a trophy so far this season as the winner on Friday night, even though you poo-pooed it. Cougs, who does no ball, says in the Brigade Bar, do we go for a superstar or good dudes who can make open shots? See, like, I'm kind of, this isn't a point against Cougs, but I'm kind of tired of just like being happy with purgatory here. You have to go for a superstar. Like you can't be landing Wemby has kind of exposed the rebuild. I mean, like, it's not a rebuild. What have they rebuilt? what has been rebuilt except for winning the lottery and landing Wemby?
You're on your way to going to the lottery again this year, which probably wasn't a part of the plan and certainly wasn't part of the expectation set by Gregg Popovich in training camp, when Pop said at training camp this year was about winning. Obviously, they've reversed course on that, and now they're trying to teach them how to be pros. Well, hell, Keldon is on his second contract. Devin is on his second contract. They might be young, but they should already know how to be pros by now. I look at this basketball team and question the basketball IQ of a lot of the players that are on this basketball team. Wemby is Wemby. You look at Trey Jones is probably the second smartest guy on this team. And when you think about who should stay and who should go, and I know, the trade deadline came and went and the Spurs didn't do a damn thing. But I look at, obviously, Wemby is untradeable. Everybody else, I think everybody else can be gone. I don't mind Trey Jones as a backup point guard, and I think he'd be a great backup point guard on a lot of teams. Kind of go way back. You think about Speedy Claxton in the early 2000s that helped the Spurs win a championship. Great backup point guard. Not really a starter level, but I like what I see out of Trey Jones, and I like what we have seen from this Spurs team since he has taken over as the point guard.
The Brigade Bar has a comment from Cougs that says, I think we're just going to be hard-pressed to get someone to join the worst team in the West. The reality here...
I disagree.
Well, I wouldn't word it that way, but the reality here, and Rob and I discussed this a few weeks ago, is we're now so far, and you rightfully pointed out, like, the playoff list streak did not start now, Pop. You know what I mean? Like, y'all have kind of been there's been some issues here that predate Wemby. You don't get to just, throw your hands up at this point in time. But we're at a place now with youth in the NBA, et cetera, where this is kind of all these players know you as, right? Like these players are coming in and their formative years when they were in high school or middle school, the Spurs were already bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't know them to be like, yeah, they've heard all the stories and whatever, and they've seen the Blu-rays and whatnot, but like, they don't know this to be a team that is capable of cultivating them in certain ways. And especially with a level of doubt or a level of question at the very least over the future of it all, even if Wemby is a part of it. I mean, so to me, it's not necessarily about the worst team in the West as much as it is a state of uncertainty around the whole operation.
You're right. And that's an interesting perspective. You look at the Spurs' last championship was in 2014. We are in 2024. It is 10 years old. And, they went 7 years between championships. So you go back to 07 and then 05 and 03, right? And so to a degree, a lot of these players, when they were growing up, when they were teenagers, they weren't watching the Spurs dominate. They weren't seeing the best of Tim Duncan and Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, but they've heard of them and they understand the basketball.
Of course.
Where I think that you're going to see players wanting to come to San Antonio is because they want to play with a guy like Wemby, because they do think in the expectation is Wemby is going to bring championships wherever he is. I think last year, and it's funny because I'm wearing a Blink 182 concert T-shirt from July, and it was, and I'll remember this because, I'm in Houston getting ready for the concert, and the Spurs put out a press release that Gregg Popovich had signed a 5-year contract extension, and he's been year to year or whatever for a long time. Interesting that the Spurs would put out a press release like that. And I think one of the reasons they did was to attract free agents, so that those free agents that wanted to play for Pop had some sort of assurance that Pop was going to be here longer than a year or two.
So I think everything that you said is fair and has merit and is true ultimately. But if I'm the hottest free agent that is within gettable, conceivable range for the Spurs, and my thought process is exactly what you just said and listed out and laid out and unfolded, I also tell myself, like, well, they don't even use that dude. You know what I mean? Like, I also tell myself, like, yeah, this guy's supposed to be amazing, but like, they don't even let everything kind of flow and work through him. I mean, he's amazing, but they only had 11 wins at the All-Star break. I think it's fair to what you said is how I think the alien who just landed on Earth would view the situation. But through the context of the first half of the season, it's fair to doubt that, at least in the short term, which is where we're at right now. It's fair to doubt that and wonder how they are going to be able to court somebody over the course, at least of the summer, as they try to build for year 2 under Wemby, because how can you trust that it's going to work out when they're limiting him right now?
Well, I think from a basketball conversation standpoint, when the Spurs are talking to a big name free agent, and that big name free agent's agent and that player's individual team, they will have a plan. I do think that there is some truth to, we've got to get Wemby on an NBA court around NBA players and see what he really needs. Because when, he's coming over from France and the draft, I don't know enough about the French league, so I don't want to sound like I'm, disparaging it. But I know Kevin Harlan from TNT on the Blitz when we were in Las Vegas said, that little French league that he was in. I do think there was an idea, and if this is what they were doing, before we start adding pieces this offseason, let's give him a year, really get to know what his skill set is, and find out what he really needs to be the dominant player. What are the pieces around Wemby that we truly need after they get a season's worth of intel on that? And hopefully that's what the Spurs are doing right now. And if you're a free agent looking, that would be a part of the conversation. And we know just how open the Spurs organization is with their fans and with the media to let us know what the plan is. So we're left to speculate, but they do have those private conversations with those in the basketball community that they're trying to court.
No pun intended. I do think, though, that if you had asked yourself before the season began and you said, okay, what are the circumstances I can feel as bad as possible at the All-Star break, I think this would have been in the top 10, right? Like the worst feeling, so to speak. Like this is among the worst 10, maybe worst 5 ways that we could have gotten to this point. Is that not fair to say?
I think maybe the worst.
So, I mean, Wemby's look great, and that's certainly encouraging and an obvious and in a low-hanging fruit sort of way. But like that's the only thing that we like. What have we learned? We've learned really nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, the all-time generational prospect is good. Whoa, great. We really needed, over half of a season to come to that conclusion and that determination. And so that's why I'm saying, like, whatever, call it goodwill, call it benefit of the doubt, call it even just, blind optimism that was built up and netted as a result of winning the lottery, which is really nothing the Spurs accomplished, so to speak. It does feel like that's dissipated, and like their stock is now kind of down to a ground zero sort of level, and that's why, like, I kind of feel like they have to earn that back over the rest of this season. I mean, they're not going to be a playoff team. This is all about positioning themselves from a who they are standpoint for year 2 of the Wemby experience.
When you look at where the Spurs are, and what's crazy is Wemby has been great. Tom Orsborn in the San Antonio Express News yesterday wrote a great article about some of the French journalists that are covering this team and what they are going through and trying to cover, and then explain back to their audience, their readers in France, that yes, the Wemby is great, but the Spurs suck. And because even over there, they didn't expect this from Wemby's rookie year. And it really is kind of hard to explain how Wemby can be as great as he's been, yet the team is worse. And it's crazy to think you add a player like Wemby and the team has gotten worse from what it was a year ago. And you could point to coaching for that, player development. And again, we're not dealing with a bunch of rookies except for one really tall one. Yet Pop is constantly saying they've got to learn. What have you been doing the last couple of years with Devin and Keldon and some of those guys, if that's the case? And I do think there is a bit of, is it still in Pop we trust, right? And very much like what New England went through with Bill Belichick, and the comparisons with Belichick and Pop and Duncan and Brady are legit and fair and comparable. And we know what happened with Bill Belichick. Is Pop still the right guy to lead this charge? And by all accounts, Peter J. Holt and the ownership group, they understand the plan. They know what they're doing, or believe in what that plan is. But it's got to jumpstart next year in a big way, because I think more and more people will stop being patient.
Pop is Belichick, Duncan is Brady. In Jason Minix's exact words, Wemby is Mac Jones. He's the Mac Jones of the San Antonio.
That's not at all what I said.
Those are literally what you said. I mean, everybody heard you.
Yeah.
Everybody heard
what
you
about
here
Bailey
on the morning
Zappi?
huddle.
Can he be Bailey Zappi?